It's Tuesday, February 25th, 2020. Digital Trends Live is about to start here. Some of the topics we're covering on today's show. Have you ever sat down to watch Netflix and then thought, I don't know what I want to watch? Well, Netflix may have a solution to help alleviate some of that. And we've got a number of great guests joining us today, including Jacoby Onstruther and Tom Darnell from a company called Iris that wants to change up the way you listen to music. We'll also be joined by Greg Marsh from Kimi, a company that is reinventing the locksmith services industry with advanced robotics and AI to provide more options when you lose your key. And we'll be joined by Brad Hunstable and Linear Labs from Linear Labs, a smart electric motor company, to talk about all of their new solutions for that. All of that and more coming up on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us. We do appreciate everyone who is tuning in right now, wherever you're watching. Thank you. Thanks for being here with us today. All right, we've got a lot to cover. Of course, we are live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. All we're broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Dailymotion, Apple News, 2 different mobile apps, a smart television app, and of course at digitaltrends.com/live. So thanks for tuning in, but let's get it started right now. I'm Greg Nibbler here with Mr. Luke Larson. Hello, Luke.
Good morning, Greg.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really, really good.
Good.
Thanks for
Excellent.
asking.
Yeah, good. That's exactly what it seemed a little suspect the way you said that, but nonetheless, I am
I'm
glad
great.
you are doing good, and that is part of the fun of this show here. We get to check in with each other before we start talking about the tech news. Let's do it now. Let's talk about tech. So here are some trending stories that are going on, and this one has to do with Netflix. How many times have you sat down to watch Netflix, despite the thousands and thousands of hours of programming, and thought, I don't know what to watch.
Yeah,
I don't know what I want to watch.
that happens to me a lot.
What am I going to tune into?
I have feelings about this one, by the way.
You do?
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I want to know what that is. Well, here is what Netflix is going to be doing. If you're in the UK or Mexico, you probably already saw some of this, but they are going to be actually starting to rank some of the shows that they have on there. So it'll be, what you'll start to see is a top 10 list of the most trending shows, or most watched shows, I suppose. And then you'll also get with that for movies, and it's going to be opening up across 100 different countries is where we're going to be seeing this. And that is what they're going to be doing. So it's going to be a list, a ranking, and then each one that is ranked will get like a specific notification next to it showcasing that.
A little badge or something.
Yeah, a little badge. So, Luke, I want to know what you think about this.
Well, I mean, I think it's great that they're doing something with this because, to be honest, I've always kind of disliked Netflix's interface. Like, I find it really difficult to find things. And the reason, the situation you describe, you're sitting there trying to figure out what to watch. I don't blame that entirely on myself. I blame that a little on Netflix because they don't have a great way of feeding you what's new or the stuff that they already have that's like that you might like. I just feel like the interface that you're presented with, regardless of whether you're on a TV or on a tablet or whatever, wherever you're watching it, I just feel like there's a lot missing there, and they're hiding a lot of things from you instead of showing you what's new. So you'd think this would help, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea, at least.
And you would think that would help, but the thing is it going to actually help?
Yeah, because what the important thing here is you mentioned that it's the most viewed, but I don't know if that's actually true because it's an algorithm they're using.
So that's part of that issue too when it comes down to Netflix, especially for a lot of people who are wanting ratings. You know, a lot of organizations want to know, well, what are people actually watching? Because they come out with their own statistics and say, well, this is the most watched show of all time.
Right.
It's like, and then they offer not a lot of proof on that, and they've changed up that algorithm because it used to be for a movie, like if somebody watched the entire thing, then it counted. Now it's if you watch 2 minutes, it counts. So it's like, what really, really quantifies in there?
And I think they're really kind of, obviously they want people to watch Netflix original series. That's what it really comes down to, I think.
Right.
And that's what that 2 minute little, that it counts that as a 2 minute watch because, somebody watches a new show, they watch 2 minutes of it, and that counts for them as a play. Whereas if you're watching, your favorite episode of The Office or whatever, you're not going to watch 2 minutes of it, and then, like those are the things that would just be permanently, fixed on the list if it was just most viewed.
Yeah.
And that's not really what they're interested in giving you. They want to give you, here's this new original series that we've got, and we want you to watch this new thing that we have. Here's what's hot, right? So I'm a little suspicious, is what I'm trying to say, of
Right.
how they're presenting this information.
Of how this is all going to be, presented to you when you're watching this. And that's one of the things with Netflix, it's hard to say exactly, but I do want to know what people think about that as well, because this is a big switch, and it's something that's a little bit different from what some of the other streaming services do. And I don't know, I'm not quite sure how this gives them that competitive advantage, I guess, other than just to make sure that you know what you want to watch, that there's always something like, just watch this, trust us, watch this.
Yeah.
And less of that scrolling through.
Yeah.
And it staying on the platform.
Yeah, instead of hopping off and, well, I can't find anything. Let's go see if there's something on
I mean, I
Amazon
can't
or
tell you
whatever.
how many times I have done that, and where it's I'm sitting there and I'm watching Netflix like, I don't see anything here. Let's try Prime. Let's try HBO, or something like that.
Yeah. And the truth is, a lot of times there is stuff there that you might want to watch, but again, it's just not always presented to you in the way that, like, oh, that's there. Wow. Like a lot of times I find myself like I have to really search hard for something, and then I'll eventually find it and be like, I cannot believe this has been here this whole time and it hasn't been like presented to me in a good way. So, that's just the current situation. And I feel like this could help, but also I am just like suspicious that this is really for them to get more buzz on original series.
Well, you can read more about that at digitaltrends.com. So let us know what you think as far as what is going on there with that Netflix story. I know we've got a lot of news to cover, so we're going to continue on here with our coverage here at Digital Trends Live. And we thank everybody who's joining us. So let's talk about another trending story. So right now, what we're going to talk about is Amazon. So we know that Amazon has opened up some Amazon Go stores in a number of different locations around the country, but they are now going full-on giant grocery store with these things. So this is what's happening here. So the Amazon Go store is something that we've seen in some airports. Seattle's had a few different ones, and that's where you walk in and it's cashierless, to where you go in and you're essentially, you don't have to talk to anybody in theory. You walk in, you scan your entry, it accesses your Amazon Prime account, you're able to pick up items, and then in theory, just walk right out of the store, and it's charged. It's charged to your account, so you don't actually have to talk to people. If you're like me, you kind of like this idea a little bit. But I'm a big fan of self-checkout. I'm a big fan. Big fan of self-checkout. And sorry, please don't hit me, grocery store clerks out there. But this is what they're doing now, though. They're expanding on this whole thing where they purchased Whole Foods. They want to get into this brick and mortar side of things even bigger, and they're opening up a giant grocery store in Seattle's Capitol Hill district, and that is what they're doing right now. So this thing is going to be opening up pretty soon. It's going off of that Go model. It's going to be called something a little bit different. So it is one that's going to be
Go grocery, right?
Amazon Go, Go One, I believe, is something that they're going to be opening up. So this is going to be kind of Go Grocery is part of this. Something that's going to be kind of an interesting move for them in getting into this side of things and jumping into this brick and mortar side of things.
Yeah.
Is it someplace that you would shop?
I think so. I mean, I'm a little confused about how they're positioning this, because the Amazon Go stores are a little more almost more like a convenience store, or a little bit larger than that, I guess. Whereas this is supposed to be a full-on grocery store to compete with their own Whole Foods. I even read that some of the Whole Foods specific brands will be offered in the store.
Yeah.
So it's really leaning on that, where does this fit in? I think they said they want it to be competitors with something like Walmart or Publix, and less Whole Foods, because Whole Foods is their, high end or whatever. Whereas this is supposed to be maybe somewhere in the middle, but they are offering some of those, I think it's Whole 365, some of those nicer brands that are only available in Whole Foods. So, I'm curious how this will end up playing out. I don't think people are oh, the Amazon brand is what's going to bring me to a grocery store. I think people are a little more suspect of that, but the cashierless thing is pretty cool, and I'm sure people will be really interested in at least trying it out,
Yeah.
It is just it's just a fun, weird techie thing, the idea that you don't have to pay. You could it feels like you're just stealing. You just grab something and walk out.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of an interesting experience, and it is, going after Walmart, because one of the things that I saw, of the billions of dollars that are spent on retail grocery, only about 2% is spent online. So people still go into the store, especially for fresh food. And then once you're in there for your fresh food, you buy household items. These are some of the studies that they saw, which is how we all utilize a grocery store. Because fresh food, that's a lot of times where you want to go in and you want to see it, you want to touch it.
Yeah.
Rather than trust somebody else to bring it. And they're like, well, we could do that too.
Yeah.
So let's get some of that Walmart money, or some of the other grocery stores that are out there, some of that Safeway, Kroger money.
how it's gonna differentiate an organic avocado from a normal avocado is my real concern.
That is a good point.
You know what I mean? Like
That's true.
Like sometimes I get that messed up on my self checkout or whatever. You know, it's like
Do you
complicated.
go back in afterward and then just
of
confess
course,
and tell them,
Greg.
you know what, I
course.
accidentally typed in the regular avocado code. I'm so sorry. Yeah, no, I've never done that before. Yeah, that's true. How's it going to do that? Because one thing Amazon did talk about, though, is that they believe that their ability to recognize what products are is so good that they can differentiate between a lot of really specific things. And if somebody picks something up and they put it back down or they have it in the wrong location, they're saying they'll still be able to see what it is. I'm going to guess there's going to be some errors. You might want to check your bill after going there. I mean, as good as Amazon's technology is, come on, really? I mean, if it is that good, that is really amazing. But also, they're getting a lot of info on you, too. I mean, for people who are concerned about identity theft, or maybe not necessarily identity theft, but as far as facial recognition software and things like that, that's not what Amazon's saying they're doing, but that's a lot of cameras that are on you.
Oh yeah, lots of
Not that
cameras.
there's not now when you go to the grocery store. But still.
A little slightly different kind of camera. I think they're doing something a little more high tech there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I think we'll have to see like how. I'm sure this will take a lot to catch on, and we'll have to see like whether other grocery stores like have to try and compete in some way. Like the self-checkout thing, like that started out small, and then it just like expanded to every grocery store basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see where it all goes, but that is something you can read about too at digitaltrends.com. Let us know what you think about that. All right, continue on here with some trending news stories. We've got a lot to cover on today's episode, but we do want to make sure that you are up to date on things that people are talking about right now. And this next one has to do with Apple Watch. So Apple has made it no secret that they want to get into the health industry, in particular via this vehicle of their Apple Watch, which is what they're using right now for monitoring hearts, all kinds of different things that they believe that they can do to actually help people out. And now there's a new study out for people who are 65 or older. So this study has to do with trying to predict when a stroke is going to happen. So this is a partnership Apple has announced with Johnson & Johnson to where they are encouraging people to do this. You can sign up actually to join this. So they're saying it's for research for atrial fibrillation, which is an early detection sign of a stroke. And again, I'm not a doctor, so forgive me if I'm getting my terminology a little bit incorrect, but I'm just trying to bring you what they're doing. So they've already studied with Stanford before, as far as studying different things with health-related issues, and this is just one more thing they're putting into that. It's called the Heartline Study, and they want to be able to help predict when strokes are going to happen.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about this is, and from what I read, it's still up to debate as to whether or not the study they found actually works, and whether doctors all agree that it works. But I think the real problem with your heart rate is you go into the doctor and they measure it while you're there. But getting a big picture, like how your heart beats throughout the entire day, is a lot more difficult and requires putting in a bunch of stuff, and like it's a big mess. And you're not going to do that unless you have it's already bad.
Right.
You're catching it really late. Right. So if this can like detect it way earlier just by measuring your heartbeat, your heart rate through the wrist, like I think that potentially could be really a huge game changer.
Yeah.
We just don't know at this point whether or not it actually can work.
And that's I think part of the study, just to go along with this, using the ECG app to try to monitor the heart and be able to figure some of this stuff out. There's some other things that they've said they want to work on, when it comes to diabetes or other health-related issues. Tim Cook actually made a statement at one point saying that he believes that Apple's greatest contribution to the world will be in health technology, that's what he thinks that they're eventually going to be like, this is what's going to last the test of time, is what this stuff. It's not going to be your iPhone or whatever fancy thing they have there associated with that, but it's going to be the health related issues that come with that. And so that's something that I think is an interesting way to go about it. I mean, I love hearing about health technology. If it's something that can actually help people out, great.
Yeah.
But again, it's part of a study. But I think it's interesting going after, the 65 years and older. That's who they're asking. So, if you're watching this show, awesome, you're cool. If you're not, maybe you know somebody who would actually fall into that line and be somebody who could be a target for this. And there's a way you can sign up for it. There's going to be 2 different kinds of groups that go with it. But anything that can help advance health technology and access to health technology, or even just notification that, hey, you need to go see a doctor, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and this is real health technology, not like the old, I think when the Apple Watch stuff started, it was like, you should stand up every 5 minutes, and they would give you a warning, like, hey, you're being lazy, stand up. Like, That's not going to save anybody's
No,
life.
and honestly, I don't like it barking at me, telling me to stand up anyway. So maybe I'm not very good at that. But something like this, where it's like, hey, you should go in and see a doctor.
Yeah, because we've been listening to your heartbeat, and yeah, you should go.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah, so we'll see where that goes, but that's something that you can take a look at there at digitaltrends.com. Final thing here before we talk about our product of the day. We do have another story from Apple, and this is for all of you out there who have been clamoring to use Apple Maps for so many years. We do know that they rolled out with their update, and now the update is expanding even more with what they are calling, I want to make sure I get it right, Look Around. So Look Around is basically Google Street View.
Yeah.
And that's their version of it, but they're expanding it to more cities. And I do want to ask, Luke, are you an Android or an Apple user?
Android.
Android, okay. So I know some people who use, I know a lot of people who are Apple users, who are iPhone users.
I know somebody who
I know
has
somebody.
an
I know
iPhone.
I had talked to somebody one time who had an iPhone. But clearly most people do not use Apple Maps. And so
Yeah.
this is one thing where Apple, despite all of their successes in so many other ways, has really been way behind the curve
Yeah.
when it comes to their mapping software.
Some of it is just perception at this point. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's just hard to, when it comes to something that needs to be reliable and you actually depend on it when you're in a situation like I'm driving and I need to get
Right.
somewhere on time or whatever, like you're gonna go with what you assume is the more dependable thing. Even if it's not and you don't really know, you're just gonna go with what's more like what you assume is more dependable. So like it's a hard hurdle for Apple to
big
have to
hurdle.
jump through or jump over. I mean, I don't know the numbers. Like maybe there are other people who
maybe
it's
there
default,
are,
you
but
know?
just because of default,
Yeah.
that they're on there. But I don't know. I have to think that Google Maps would be far more. I mean, just the fact that they're opening up. So part of their announcement was that there's 3 more cities now that you can use this on. So now they have New York, L.A., Vegas, Houston, Oahu, and now they've opened up to Philly, Boston, and D.C. And it looks like that's probably about it.
Yeah.
So that's not a lot of.
That's kind of a slow
cities.
rollout, and this was
Pretty slow
announced, I
rollout.
think, last year, so or a while back.
Yeah, that they were doing the update, maybe even earlier this year.
Yeah.
And this is just adding on to it. So maybe there's more to come.
Yeah.
And this could all be leading up to that, to what we think could be an Apple announcement later on in March of some new products. So there's a whole thing that you can unravel with that, and perhaps this would be just one little step towards a big update on that side of things too.
Yeah. Let's hope they roll out more cities, because I hope that's not the definitive list. I'm sure they'll.
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
rolling it out.
you would have to hope so. But there we go. That's what you can read about at digitaltrends.com.
Hey, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day.
All right, it's time for our product of the day. There it is. This is what we're talking about today. So you don't want this, you need this. It's the Ultimate Ears Mega Boom 3. And let me tell you, I have one of these and they are awesome. And let me tell you why. For one, the sound on these things is pretty amazing. It's 360-degree sound. I mean, you have a lot of speakers out there that can put out some pretty good sound now, but this genuinely is pretty loud. It's got a solid bass level. Another couple of key features with this, and it's time to buy a new Bluetooth speaker if you haven't for a while. You've got one-touch control, and what I mean by that is all you have to do is hit a button. If you've ever tried to pair up a Bluetooth speaker and it's a real pain sometimes because it's not connecting or it doesn't know what you want, this makes it really easy just with one touch. So you can play, pause, fast forward. You can do it all with there. If you're having trouble finding the volume buttons, well, they're gigantic. So there's no missing that. You're going to see that part. But here's a couple of key things of why I like this particular speaker. I like when it's summer, when it's nice, I want to get in some water. And this is waterproof. And as they're demonstrating right there, you can run it under why you would do that, I don't know. I guess wash it off if you've been filthy with your speaker. But that's one of the key features that I think is really cool. So completely waterproof, and it floats. So if you're going out to the river, or you're going out to a lake, or hanging out in the pool, you knock it in, you think, oh great, it's gonna sink to the bottom. No, it'll actually float, and that's what's really cool about it. On top of that, a 20-hour battery life. So this thing is really pretty incredible, and this is why it's our product of the day. So right now, it's $30 off, so that is a really great deal. We've got a link that you can click for that. And the one other thing I wanted to show is, not only is it a great speaker, but actually the box, it's got some pretty cool artwork on it too. So I mean, that just adds to it. Not that you need the artwork, but it's like a nice little bonus if you're going to be picking this up. So again, this is the Ultimate Ears Mega Boom 3. So it's a fantastic speaker. Want you to follow that link right there. You can pick that up. Take advantage of the deal today. Get yourself a new Bluetooth speaker. Treat yourself today. That's what we got for our product of the day. All right. Now, it's time to take a break. And I want to say thank you to Mr. Luke Larson for joining us here today. Luke, Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for
Likewise.
being here. And Luke's having a fantastic day.
Having a
And I hope you are too.
fantastic day.
Fantastic day. We're going to take a break, but here's what's going to happen. We're going to actually play one of our episodes of Deets with Mr. Riley Wynn, where he's going to be talking about 6G. Yes, I know.
Wait,
everybody's
6G?
excited about. Wait, not 4G, not 5G, 6G. That's what we're going to be covering next. So Riley Wynn is going to be talking about that. What is 6G? Well, he'll answer that question. So that's coming up after this. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
Are you tired of hearing about 5G? Me too. So today I'm going to tell you about 6G. That's right, folks, the sixth generation of wireless communication. Technically speaking, it doesn't exist yet, but that hasn't stopped the internet from all sorts of wild speculation. Thing is, most of the 6G info out there is based on a small handful of reports and studies. So to help clear up any misconceptions, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of all the things we know for sure about 6G. You're watching The Deets, a show where we demystify the technologies that are shaping the future. I'm your host, Riley Wynn. So is 6G even real? Well, yes and no. Yes, 6G, or whatever it's eventually called, will replace 5G. But right now, 6G is not a functioning piece of technology, and still very much in the research phase. The telecom industry is so heavily focused on 5G that it's been treating 6G like a middle sibling. And mom and dad, aka Big Telecom, are going to focus on their 5G baby for the foreseeable future. So if the industry is so focused on 5G, when will 6G actually launch? Well, mobile technology has evolved on a relatively steady basis. 3G came in the early 2000s, 4G in the 2010s, and 5G in 2020. So it's reasonable to think that we won't get 6G until the 2030s. However, just because we may not see 6G for 10 years, doesn't mean it's not being worked on right now. Just like with 5G, most major companies and governments will work on 6G projects, and several already are talking about plans. Japan has most recently launched its 6G project. Both Samsung and LG have 6G research centers in South Korea. Huawei also reportedly started its 6G research. And even in the US, President Donald Trump tweeted in February of 2019 that he wanted 5G and even 6G technology in the United States as soon as possible. Everyone is already hopping on the 6G bandwagon, even the Donald. All of these different governments and companies are starting to work on 6G. But can we tell yet who will have the fastest 6G? No, but that hasn't stopped experts from guessing. One expert claims 6G could deliver mind-boggling speeds of 1 terabit per second or 8,000 gigabits per second. Forget using 5G to download just one movie in a few seconds from Netflix. With 6G speeds, in just 1 second, you could download the entire Stranger Things series 7 times over, or download 142 hours of Netflix movies. It's great to talk about what 6G could do, But since it's just a pie in the sky idea at this point, why does it matter to you? Well, it's going to be like 5G, but more so. Even higher speeds, lower latency, and masses of bandwidth. Researchers and scientists are even talking about 6G being the network to move away from wires and use our devices as antennas to create a decentralized network that's not under the control of a single network operator. So 6G could be the generation to take the power away from the big telecom companies and give it to the people. 5G is expected to take tech that already exists, like autonomous cars, drones, and smart cities, to the next level. But 6G may bring to life futuristic ideas like the integration of our brains and computers. Technology could soon tap into our bodies through something like a contact lens and show us a different world than reality. Imagine that. 6G literally could bring on real-life cyborgs. It could make charging your phone out of thin air a reality. And 6G coverage could extend over oceans and even into space. So when we finally colonize the moon, you can still FaceTime with your boring Earth friends. In other words, with 6G, science fiction could become science fact. 5G is going to change the way we communicate over the next 5 years. But when 6G is finally ready, it could entirely change the way we live. Until next time, I'm Riley Wynn with Digital Trends, and thanks for watching.
Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you everyone for joining us. Of course, you can always hit that subscribe button. You can join the show anytime that we do go live, which is every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. We get to have all kinds of discussions about technology and different ways that technology changes our perceptions and the ways that we interact with the world. A lot of times it's with things that we're so used to that we didn't even think they could be changed. And right now we're talking about the music industry and different ways to listen to audio. And to do so, joining us, we have Jacoby Anstruther and Tom Darnell, who are the CEO and founder, respectively, and the CCO for Iris. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Greg.
Excited to talk about this. I love talking about music and different ways that things can change in association with that. But I want you to give us your story here. If you can explain to everybody, what it is, a little bit of your history in the background in the music industry, and then what made you decide to maybe form this company? What did you see that wasn't out there that you wanted to change?
Sure. I've been working in and around the music industry for 15 plus years now on a record label, events business, produced music myself, built a number of recording studios. And we've really seen a real decline in the last 30 years of audio through the digital age. And it was a mission to try and reverse that and find a solution that genuinely brought back that quality of audio we used to have in the vinyl area and before.
And to explain that just a little bit for everybody too, in case they don't realize how degraded it has become, when we're talking about MP3s and all this compression that's happened versus what the actual recordings are, is that right?
Yeah, I think our bar has slowly lowered and lowered over the last 30 years, from the vinyl down to the CD and then down to the MP3 era. And I don't think we realize quite how bad it's got until we're exposed to sound that is really high quality again. And I think that's what we've managed to achieve as a business at Iris, is to really show people what it's like going back to stereo, or the MP3 stereo that you've become accustomed to.
And I want to talk about that experience too, but just to get into the technical side of things, since we're going along those lines, you know, with the way that music is compressed and the way that we listen to it so much now, what are some of the different technological solutions you've come to actually get those that feeling, I guess, back, to get this audio back that you're talking about, these actual original recordings, and get back that information that we lost?
Yeah, we look at an industry that is focused on solving this problem from an original digital file, which is a huge reduction in quality and content, just because we're paying a price for having 10,000 songs in our pocket, and the convenience of that. And you're looking at an industry that is trying to add processing on top of processing to create what we call as an artificial soundscape to solve this problem. And where we differ as a business is we've tried to identify how the human engagement with audio in a live environment works, and how we can replicate that from a digital file, rather than just manipulating or adding additional EQing or frequency manipulation to a digital file that already has these limitations in place.
So it's accenting it and doing it in that way to get that live feel, and that in particular I think seems to be what you're going for.
Yeah, engaging you as the listener in the middle of the listening experience, to sort of replace this degradation in audio that we've seen through compressed CDs and MP3s.
And I feel like there's a lot that can be spoken about as far as the creativity side of that, as far as people listening and that experience of getting, you know, that feeling of more of a connection to the artists, to what they wanted.
The emotional connection, the immersion into the audio. We react to music in a very unique way. It's one of the only things we do in life where we activate the whole brain, and we have different emotional reactions to it depending on who we are, what our past is, the music itself. And in the digital age and the degradation of music, we've sort of lost a lot of that connection, and sort of bringing that emotion to the forefront, that connection to music and immersion in it is a very powerful tool for us.
Is that what you mean by the concept of active listening, or listen well, which I know is the company motto?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the listening experience of a live environment, we're very active. Our brain is doing the process. It's picking up vast amounts of information that's all out of time. And it's piecing that together to give you your own experience. And everybody is having a different experience because A, they're in a different phase or position in the room. And B, their brains are wired differently, so they process that information differently. Through the recording of digital music and the various levels of processing you might achieve, whether it's through the DSP in your headphones or just an audio processing company, you become more and more passive in the listening experience. And you're no longer engaged doing that processing that you're doing in the live environment. And that's what Iris does. It re-engages your brain as if you were in that live environment, creating this experience of active listening where you get this more emotional response. The part of listening well is about when we are that much more engaged and our brain is active in the listening process. What are the neurological benefits from mental wellness, stress, anxiety, all the way through to information retention and memory? And that's really the work we're doing with leading hospitals and research universities at the moment.
Interesting, yeah. So a lot of different applications that can come from this. I know right now on the screen we were showcasing, you know, how people can go about utilizing the software and utilizing what you've created. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what's the best way for them to try this out?
Yeah, absolutely. We've created an app in the App Store, which is in beta stage at the moment, there for testing. The really exciting product is about to go live at the 1st of April, which is a headphone, which we believe is really the perfect listening experience. The quality of hardware and acoustic design before we even engage our unique software is many man hours of really the best engineers around the world and designers. But really the core of our business is to create an ecosystem with your current content providers where we engage, we sell our license our software into their platforms. So you can listen well, whether you're listening to your podcast, your music, whatever you may be doing.
So taking some of those acknowledging the digital platforms that we have, like you said, you have 10,000 songs at your fingertips, but then utilizing that and putting this on top of it, if I'm understanding correctly, to where it would then.
We don't want to recreate and create other places where you have to go and consume the content that you love. At the end of the day, people have, already bought into the places that they go and seek out content, whether it's music, a podcast, an audio book, or the hardware that they love even. So the strategy for Iris at the moment, we want to give consumers an experience where they can really understand what Iris is doing, which you can do through the app and by searching Iris Listen Well. Currently in iOS, and later in March, we'll be launching our Android version of the app. That's really to give people a taster of what Iris does to audio. The headphones, as Jacoby says, come later, but the longer term strategy for the business and how we want to enable people to listen well is by building this ecosystem and integrating with your music streaming platforms, or the place that you go and listen to a podcast, or indeed even the hardware that you wear, be that headphones, in-ears, or even speakers, smart speakers, for example.
I got to say, we're audiophiles here at Digital Trends, naturally. I mean, there's a tech website. Of course, we like hearing, good quality audio. So I'm very interested in this platform. One question I had, I was curious about what the feedback has been from the artists themselves, if you've talked to them.
Yeah, it's, very strong. We've actually backed by the largest independent record label in the world, Concord, as well as Roger Taylor from Queen. And they've obviously opened it up to their network of artists. And we see real excitement because it really does bring the engagement from the listener into an experience that the artist intended in the first place. And it's not through frequency manipulation or alteration of what they've previously made to create an artificial sound. It is really engaging the listener in what the artist intended.
With all those artists on there, I have to ask, just for each of you, I know we got to wrap up here pretty quick, but what's your favorite artist you've listened to utilizing Iris that now, you can't go back and listen to it any other way?
I mean, for me, Pink Floyd. Wonderful recordings in an analog studio, really quality sound, and the ability of Iris to explode that sound, and you hear things in the various tracks that you haven't heard before, secrets that they left in there, I think is a really special experience. Tom?
I'm an absolute lover of live music, and one of the gigs that blew me away many, many years ago was when I saw Muse perform in a small venue, actually, and then obviously they went on to become a huge global act. So I've been listening to Muse back in the live environment as Iris brings you back to as a listener.
I haven't seen Pink Floyd. I've seen Roger Waters, but I have seen Muse. Both of them are amazing live experiences. So I'm with you on both of those. You're both right. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us here, too, to talk about this and just to give everybody another idea of where to go. Certainly at the website, but also they can download the iOS app right now, and then the Android app is coming out in March. Is that right?
Later in March, yeah, end of March.
And the headphones are iris-headphones.com.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us here. Congratulations on the success that you have. I'm looking forward to trying it out myself and, getting back to that listen well, active listening experience.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so talking about technology and how it can change things, and certainly something, we're all used to listening to our music on those platforms, but it really is pretty muddled down when you think about it. So this is a way to maybe counteract some of that. So it's certainly an interesting interview there. We've got more to get to, though. I got to get to a break. We've got Andy Boxall joining us because MWC was going to happen, but it didn't because of coronavirus. However, all those announcements are still being made, so he's going to bring us up to date on what we missed out on or what's actually happening right now when it comes to smartphones. So all that's coming up. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello there. This is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us. We have a lot to talk about today, and I appreciate everybody who joins in live. And no matter when you're watching or where you're watching, thank you. Be sure to share the show. Let other people know about it because we keep you up to date with technology. And right now, we're going to talk about what would have been announced at MWC, but MWC, as we all know, is not happening. However, the announcements still are. And to bring us up to date with that, we have Mr. Andy Boxall joining us once again. Andy, thank you, as always, for keeping us up to date with everything. What do you want to talk about first?
Okay, so let's start with the Honor 9X Pro, which is Honor's latest smartphone that isn't really the latest. Honor and Huawei, basically very similar companies under the same umbrella, have problems with Google, and they can't use Google software. This is a phone that was launched in China like last year and has now come to Europe without Google services on board. But the phone is really nice. Costs about $270, has a triple lens camera on the back, great little design. It even has this sort of cool X shape on the back. It looks really nice. I've used the phone. It's really smart. But there's this Google Apps problem. And Huawei is working really hard to overcome this by building out its own app store. And it's definitely making progress. It's just not quite there yet. Nearly, it just needs time. And it's going to be really exciting to look and see how they grow over the next few months.
So you think that Huawei is going to be successful at creating this alternative platform to Google, to Android?
Well, they're not going to create a different platform. What they're going to do is they're going to avoid using the Google Play Store, which they can't under the current restrictions. They're going to use their own app gallery, which has been available in China for ages. It's standard practice in China where Google apps are banned.
Gotcha.
What they're going to do is fill it with the apps that currently aren't available in there that will then become an alternative to Google Play on their phones that they sell outside of China. And yes, it just needs time. They've got the money, they've got the connections, they just need time.
Wow. Well, so that's the Honor 9 X Pro. So that's one that launched, no Google apps on it, but
No.
but we've got that. I do want to take a look at that too with that X design. That sounds kind of cool. But going from there, let's talk about Huawei. Certainly one of the biggest players worldwide when it comes to phones. And I know that did they send some people to Barcelona anyway? Is that right?
Well, what they did was they had already organized their event. They'd already kept many of their executives in quarantine in Spain for 2 weeks ahead of the show. So basically, Huawei was committed, as was Honor, committed to doing stuff in Barcelona. So everyone was there. So they just held their event as usual. And a lot of journalists couldn't get out of going. They already had their tickets. They already had their hotels. They went anyway. And so Huawei entertained the people who had gone to Barcelona at their own event, and they did sort of virtual events everywhere else online.
So what kinds of things did they end up announcing through theirs?
So we talked about the Mate XS folding phone yesterday, which was the big thing, but they also talked about laptops. Oddly, Huawei and Honor used Mobile World Congress to announce laptops. Honor, for the first time, is launching laptops internationally outside of China, but Huawei has done this for a while, and they're really cool. They make super high-end Windows 10 laptops, the latest Core i7 processors. They cost around $1,600 and up.
Wow.
They have beautiful, beautiful screens, 14-inch displays, lovely keyboards. They even have this little cool pop-up selfie video camera, which is in one of the F function keys. So you push that, and it pops up instead of being in the bezel, which are super minimal. It's really cool. It's really cool.
And so going into that laptop market, is these things that are going to be available worldwide, or where are they rolling out first?
So they're going to be available in Europe and sort of internationally is what they say, which tends to be Europe and parts of Russia and other places around the world, but not the US. However, previously, they have launched laptops in the US. The MateBook X Pro has been previously available in America, but that's unlikely to happen this time around, sadly.
What are some of the other issues, coming with that as far as those things rolling out? Is it just because that they're not allowed in the U.S. or they don't want to get into the U.S.? Is that specifically blocked as well?
Sales, I think, in my understanding of it, sales are not allowed, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah.
Basically, the problem is Huawei doesn't want to get involved. They've tried in the past. It's been blocked for various reasons. There's just no point. They think, well, we may as well just continue selling outside of America. And to be honest, they're not doing too bad, seeing as they're number 2 manufacturer in smartphones without US sales. So ultimately.
And that's something I think a lot of people in the U.S. just forget about is just how big Huawei is. I mean, it is a massive, massive company. Like you said, the second biggest. Going on to talk about some of the other companies that are there too. You know, we always see some of the, I wouldn't want to say smaller, but not the Huaweis, I guess, not the Huaweis and Samsungs. Some other companies launching phones. Anything else that you want to bring up on that?
So this was, the manufacturer I want to talk about is Oppo. They're a Chinese brand. They're owned by the same huge mega conglomerate that owns OnePlus and Vivo. So they're extremely well known outside of the US. Well, they were going to launch the Find X2 at MWC, but obviously that was cancelled. And now they have announced that it will be launched on March the 6th. And this is exciting because the Find X was such an innovative, unusual, exciting design. It had this motorized camera at the top, which would pop up. And we've never seen anything quite like it. At the time, it did bezel-less screens before bezel-less screens were a thing, because it had this motorized camera at the top. So the Find X2, it's got a lot to live up to, and I cannot wait to see what Oppo does with that.
Is this going to be kind of a trend when it comes to some of these phones with the pop-up cameras to get rid of the hole punch issue?
It's one of those circumventing that problem of where to put the selfie camera. It's an option. This time, I don't know whether they're going to do it. They're talking about a 3K resolution screen, which is just monstrous. And I don't know whether they're going to put a hole punch in there or whether they're going to put a pop-up camera or this whole motorized thing again. We'll just have to wait and see. But yes, you're right. It's a trend to get rid of those little tiny holes or notches that disturb our wonderful notchless screens.
Well, we'll have to see where it goes. I mean, definitely a lot of stuff coming out. Do you think that there's going to be more here the next coming weeks, or is everybody just kind of getting it all out right now?
No, the cancellation of Mobile World Congress has made a mess of everybody's release plans. But Huawei is another company who's doing something exciting later on in the month. At the end of their press conference, they said they will be launching the P40 on March the 26th in Paris. And that's really exciting. The P30 from last year, easily one of the best camera phones we've seen in years. Still one of my favorites. It's the P40, the sequel to that. Cannot wait to see what they're going to do with the camera.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for keeping us up to date despite everything that's going on. Like you said, it's kind of a mess right now for all of these companies, but you keep us up to date with it, and we've got all of that at Digital Trends. Thank you, Andy.
Pleasure, no problem at all. Thanks.
So that is one of the great things we get to do here. So digitaltrends.com, you want to find out about all these releases, all these different phones that he brought up, some of those, the Huawei phones, the Honor phone, the Oppo phone, and anything else that's going to be happening. I want to take a look at these laptops, actually, in particular. We have all that at digitaltrends.com, so that's a great way to stay on top of that. Coming up next, so we're going to be joined by Greg Marsh, who is the founder and CEO of KeyMe. If you're like me, you lose your keys a lot. I do. I mean, it's just a fact. So this is actually a solution to that of making it easier to get replacement keys. And there's a lot more that's involved in this too. There's AI, there's robotics. All of that's coming up. So stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thank you very much for joining us. So again, as I always say, hit that subscribe button, get the notifications when we go live, or just follow along with all of the content we get to cover here at Digital Trends. And right now, we're going to have another one of our interviews. And I have to say this, if you're like me, you lose your keys a lot. I do. It's just a fact of life for me. I always have to find replacements or get replacements made, and we're going to talk about that in part and different ways that technology can provide solutions for those kinds of issues. And right now we've got Greg Marsh, the founder and CEO of KeyMe. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I want to talk to you just about all the technology that's involved in this and what you're doing as a company, but let's go back to the founding of it. What was your inspiration to found this company?
So I moved to New York about 7 years ago. I was going to grad school at Columbia, and my wife got locked out and had a horrible experience. She, paid way more than the guy originally quoted and just got taken advantage of, and got me thinking about how big of an industry this was and how little innovation and technology has been introduced into it. And so I ended up dropping out of business school and meeting up some great engineers, and we started building.
Yeah, I mean, and it really is. If you've ever been in that position where you have to get a key made, whether it's for your car or your house, it is a pain. I mean, it takes a long time. It costs a lot of money. You got to get somebody out there. Sometimes, I'm not saying they're all not friendly, but sometimes they're not. So yeah, I definitely understand that. And whatever your wife went through, I'm sure a lot of us have had similar experiences to how frustrating that is. So you go from that, but I mean, it's still a lot of steps in between. Okay, this kind of sucks. Okay, now I've got this company that's everywhere. So what were the different kinds of technology that you took a look at to try to solve some of this?
Yeah, so we at our core are a really hardcore engineering company. So to provide the solutions that we're providing, we have a very core robotics and computer vision function in the company. So lots of mechatronics, lots of very precise handling of keys. We had to design all that from scratch. When you insert a key into the kiosk, we have several cameras that look at the key under different perspectives and wavelengths of light. And so using computer vision and machine learning to classify keys and then use that information to make keys in a convenient way or store those keys if you want to access it in the future required really hardcore technology investment. So that's really been the foundation for our success.
And we're taking a look right there, just kind of giving an example of somebody going there. So there's a digital backup aspect to this too. I guess actually before we even get to that, let's walk through what the experience is like going to one of these kiosks and where they're at.
Yeah, so our vision is really to be the most trusted brand in access solutions. And the way that we think about that is getting people into physical spaces. That can be your home, your office, your mailbox, your vehicle. And we're doing that both through physical products like a variety of keys, as well as through high quality service providers like Locksmiths. And so our core product is the retail kiosk that you're showing on the screen here. And we have them deployed in over 3,000 retail locations across the country. We're in retailers like Bed Bath & Beyond, IKEA, Rite Aid, Menards, Lowe's. So a really healthy mix of different retailers. And you can walk up to the kiosk, you can insert your key. We will very quickly, using computer vision and machine learning, classify that key. And if you want a copy, we can dispense one for you right on the spot. If you have a fancy key, like a vehicle key, we actually have several antennas that are wrapped around the circumference where you insert the key. And they can pick up the transponder information from the chip of your vehicle key. You can put in a shipping address on the kiosk and pay. And in our fulfillment center, we'll program and ship you off a perfect vehicle key at about half the price of the dealership. We have another antenna on the front of the kiosk that lets us support RFID keys. This is like a key card or fob you use to get into your home or office. And you can just tap that to the front. We have some really cool form factors like a sticker that can go on the back of your phone that you can use. So really providing a variety of key application services with an increasing focus on these more sophisticated electronic keys. And then the last part to polish off is if you choose to, you can store your key information in your account, and if you get locked out, you can return to a kiosk, log in, and actually print out a spare key without spending hundreds of dollars on a locksmith.
That's pretty incredible. I mean, and talking about that, I guess that goes back to your access solutions because there's so many different ways and different things that people are using to get in the doors now with a lot of keyless entry. But this would solve some of that as well. One thing I have to ask, when it comes to storing this kind of information is about security, how that side of things works, and how people's accounts work when they're in there.
Yeah, security is core to the business. We've been extremely thoughtful about it. Really, at the foundation of our strategy is to keep as little information as possible about our customers, which is the opposite approach to most consumer-facing companies and certainly most retailers. And a lot of businesses get into trouble where they aggregate all this personal information, which both makes it harder to keep secure and makes it more attractive for bad actors to compromise. And so we've made from day one a policy of we want as little information about our customers as possible. So we strictly don't store any personal information that could ever link key data to a location or lock. So we don't see credit card information. All we see is a token that lets us charge you through Stripe. We like basically in our database keep a series of numbers that represent geometrical features of keys. And if someone were to hack our database, they would see those numbers, have no way to practically make use of them. If we're ever shipping a key off, we purge the address as soon as the order is fulfilled. So there's massive security that's, comes out of that foundation of keeping as little information as possible. And then obviously the information we do keep is encrypted with, military grade encryption. But even in a worst case scenario, there's very little downside for our customers.
When it's shipped off, this is just a random question I have when I'm thinking about, getting a key shipped to your house. Is it kind of in nondescript packaging so somebody can walk up and just say, oh, it's a key me. Let me just open this up and, press the button and see what I can find?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's nothing that says key me on the packaging. It's completely nondescript. We recommend that for extra security, customers can ship to a location that does not have the lock that the key goes to. So for their office or a neighbor or something like that. But we've shipped millions and millions of keys. We've never had a security issue. We do also have accountability on security that's never existed before. So, for example, if you go into like an Ace Hardware or Locksmith, they have no way of creating security. They don't know who you are. They don't know what keys they're replicating. And so there's literally no security in this space. So if there ever was, an instance where someone copied a key they shouldn't have been copying, we are the only key duplicator in the world that actually can provide accountability as well. So we've got some really unique features to enhance security in this space.
Where do you see the future of this going? I know that you're in, thousands of kiosks now around the country. Where would you like to see the future of this technology go?
So our goal is to build the first brand ever in this industry. It's a $12 billion a year industry in the US. And there's no brand that's got one of the worst customer experience ratings of any large offline service industry. The average locksmith is rated 2.1 out of 5 on Google and has been totally ignored by technology for literally 100 years. And so our goal is to really nail the customer experience by providing convenient, secure ways to copy keys and solve lockouts. And in doing that millions or tens of millions of times, actually build the first ever brand that when people need keys or a lock installed or a lockout solution, that we're the kind of go-to company that they innately think of.
Well, Greg, I want to say thank you very much for joining us here to talk about this. What's the best website for somebody to go to find out where a KeyMe is located near them?
Yeah, you can go on Google and look for KeyMe right on there, or www.key.me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so there, talking about solutions for keys, and we talk about all kinds of technology here on the show. We've got more coming up. We've got the debut of a new segment that was just created. It's going to be happening after this break. I am going to try to figure out where in the world a live stream is being broadcast from. That's what I'm going to attempt live here on the show. So stick around. We'll be right back with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thank you for joining us here on the show today. It is now time for some more news after we debut a new segment here on the show. So here's what's going to happen. This is something that you can play along with at home, and it could result in my complete failure, but I think I'm going to dominate it. So it's a game that we're going to be starting where we're going to showcase a random live streamed something from around the world. I have no idea what it is, but I have a little bit of time in order to actually try to assess where it is based on nothing other than looking at what it is that we're going to get to see together. And so that's what's going to happen. I'm going to have 15 seconds to make my first guess, and then I'm going to have time. I'm going to get a clue, and then another clue, but if I can't guess it in those 3 times, I lose. I do not want to lose, so I'm going to try to get this right. Again, I don't know what I'm going to see, but this is the debut of our new segment of Where the F is That Live Stream? All right, okay, we're going underwater to start off with? Okay, fine. I'm gonna guess this is clearly some kind of an aquarium. The lighting is a little bit weird. I'm gonna guess this is an aquarium in Las Vegas. Am I right or wrong? Is that not right? Okay, hint. I'm from this state. If you use the pickup line, you're the only. Okay, what state has, you're the only 10 I see? Okay, I have to think about that. All right, so it's definitely from a state. It's probably not going to be California. Damn it. All right, I know I get one more clue on this thing. Okay, you're the only 10 I see. I'm trying to think of what that would actually equate to, and now I'm panicking. Okay, definitely country music and a streetcar named Desire. Streetcar named Desire. You're really going with that? Okay, I'm going to go with Tennessee. Is it Tennessee? Is that it? All right, Tennessee, I gotta say the clue did help out a lot on that one. You're the only 10 I see. That must be a country song. I'm gonna guess I know who found this live stream back there, but, oh, you're the only 10 I see. Well, see, I'm a little bit slow when it comes to that. Nonetheless, I still got it right. So I would say that's still a success out of the gate. That was actually a solid clue now that I think about it. All right, so this is what we're gonna be doing at least once a week. That's our first shot at this. I think that was pretty fun. Maybe somebody guessed it ahead of me, but I will accept this challenge. So far, I am undefeated in this game. So I just want to say, I think this is a success. We'll have to see where this goes, but that was the first edition of Where the F is This Live Stream? We'll have more of those, and I challenge everybody to try to beat me. All right. Let's go on. Let's talk about some news. This is going to be bad for me now that I just said that. Okay, let's do this. Let's talk about some trending news that we have here for today. Let's talk about NASA, some other ways that you can help contribute to NASA. They seem to be putting out this giant net to try to get people to get involved in what they're doing. They want people to possibly be astronauts for the Artemis program. They want people to help design Mars rovers. They also want you to help design something to go to Venus. So here is what's happening. This is a big push that they have right now where they're opening this up to everybody. They said it doesn't matter whether you have a degree in anything, maybe you're just an entrepreneur, maybe you're somebody who invents things. This is what they want. So they're planning to go back to Venus. Now, in case you don't know the information about Venus, it is a very, very hostile environment. The pressure, I believe, on the actual surface is about, I believe it's 90 times what it is on Earth. Of course, I lost this. 90 times the surface pressure of Earth. So it can crush about anything. And the surface temperature is about 900 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a very, very difficult environment. That right there, what you're looking at is one of the only pictures ever taken from Venus. That's actually from a Russian lander that didn't survive very long. It melted shortly after that and was lost, but that's actually one of the only pictures from the surface of Venus. Well, we want to get more, but we have to design a vehicle that can, withstand all of that, and that's why they're coming up with the Automation Rover for Extreme Environments, the AREE. But with that, they need to be able to navigate. And you can't use traditional electronics because most of that stops working at 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and then it's pretty much lost. So they need to come up with a new solution to be able to navigate and not run into objects. That's essentially it. They need a navigation system. And that's what the challenge is. So they want one that does not rely on electronics. They say that they need the creativity, and this is from theirs, quote, the creativity of makers and garage inventors to help solve this problem. So the challenge is out there. The first prize will be 15 grand. Second is 10,000. Third is $5,000. Look, I want to get all these solutions to work too for NASA, but I'm just going to say if you come up with a solution like that, $15,000 seems a little bit low. But nonetheless, that is what they're coming up with. So It's somewhere that you can get involved with the space program, and they're opening up to everybody. That's kind of the fun thing when it comes to space exploration right now is everybody's acknowledging, certainly degrees help out a lot. Very intelligent people need to work on this, but sometimes there's a diamond in the rough that could be you that could come up with the solution to navigate on Venus, but let them know. You can enter into the contest as well at digitaltrends.com. We've got a link. All right, continuing on. We're all over the place here. Let's do some more news. Let's talk about autonomous vehicles. So this is another kind of really intuitive solution that MIT has created. MIT is always coming up with pretty amazing things. Speaking of geniuses, and their C-Sail section of their university is certainly at the forefront of all kinds of different technology that we could end up using. When we talk about autonomous vehicles, we talk about navigation. So we just brought up the stuff on Venus. Now we're talking about this. Where the way we do it here on Earth is LiDAR. LiDAR is usually what these autonomous vehicles are working off of, and it's light detecting, so it's essentially sending out light, it's getting the signals back. It can scan a lot of things as long as the environment is very nice. This is why they test out a lot of this stuff in Arizona or Texas or places where the weather is really nice and you don't have to worry about too many obstacles in your way or rain or snow or anything. So that's nice, but that's not everywhere that we want to use autonomous vehicles. We need some more solutions, including in rough environments, places where it's going to snow, places where the roads are not clear. So a lot of times what these things are reading are the road signs as far as speed limits. They're reading different lines. They're understanding where they are. But if everything's covered in snow, it's hard for it to know where the cement is. If you're using LiDAR, it doesn't know where the road is going. Even if it has some maps, it can't double check on that. This is a solution that could possibly solve some of that. So this is where we're at. So it is what's called localizing ground penetrating radar. And this is coming from MIT. So C-Sail stands for Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab. They have all kinds of amazing things. But this can see up to 10 feet underground. So this is a different way to use this and a different way to be able to detect what's going on. So it doesn't matter if it's heavy snow, if there's fog, if the road's covered in mud. It can know where the actual road is going. It can actually analyze the soil and know, okay, this is underneath a road. This is where I should go. And then it cross-references that with maps, and it's able to do it. So it's a pretty cool solution to that, to some of these rough environments. Maybe something that we need. Right now, it's too big to use. It's about 6 feet wide, and it hangs off the back of the car. So they've got to work on getting it down in size, and that's kind of the next step for them. But pretty cool solution to that. So we'll have to see where it goes from there, but definitely something that we could see on autonomous vehicles in the future. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for Digital Trends Live. We've got more coming up. We are not done yet, so we've got more to talk about. And we've got some more interviews coming up. So up next, we have Brad Hunstable, who's the CEO and founder of Linear Labs. So we're going to be talking about them, about their electric motor solutions that they have, and some different ways that we can extend the battery life and improve emissions and lower fuel consumption, all kinds of different things that they're working on. That's why we're going to have that interview with him. So that's coming up next. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back. This is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. We bring you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, and discussions. And certainly something that we talk a lot about is what's basically an electric vehicle revolution. It's what it feels like right now as far as it's seeing the changing ways that we're utilizing and harnessing electricity for those solutions. You see cars like Tesla and all kinds of things, but definitely the motors are the focus. Let's talk about some revolutions in that, and that's what we're discussing right now. We've got Brad Hunstable, who's the CEO and founder of Linear Labs. Thanks so much for joining us here.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to talk about your company and about some of the solutions that you've come up with that are so ingenuitive. And let's kind of go back to the founding of the company a little bit, and let's talk about what it was that you saw that you thought you could do better.
Well, look, if you look around everywhere we look, people are talking about electrification. Tesla has obviously been the front runner in that movement. But it's not just around electric vehicles and mobility. It's also around things like renewables. You hear about wind generation. You hear about solar. And so what I believe is we're entering a new wave of electrification. I call it electrification 2.0. And what my company, Linear Labs, has done is what we believe we've invented is really the first new class of electric machines, literally the first new class of electric machines since the times of Tesla. And in this case, when I talk about Tesla, I'm talking about Tesla. The guy who invented it. So we believe we have the electric motors, the generators of the future, and our vision is to be the Intel inside of this new wave of electrification, like I said, called electrification 2.0.
Wow, so we're talking, from the Tesla coil to this now is where we're heading here. Maybe not necessarily the Tesla coil, but talking about this, and such a revolution, that's a really huge thing when it comes to. It's a very big statement to make. So let's talk about what exactly it is that stands out and what makes these so different.
Well, the electric motors today, believe it or not, don't do torque very well. And at the end of the day, it's really about two things. It's about the efficiency of the electric motor and the efficiency of that curve. It's also about how much torque you put out of the electric motor. And what we've built is an electric motor that takes advantage of a few new principles. The most notable is that at very low RPMs, we produce incredible amounts of torque at that very high efficiency. The implications for that are wide-ranging. Everything from we can increase the range of many applications. So electric cars, for instance, we may be able to increase the range 10 to 20%. I'm sure everyone here has ridden a scooter like the Bird or the Lime scooters. We increase the range of those somewhere between 50 to 100%. And we simplify the systems of the electrification, the powertrain and whatnot. What that means is that we can start bringing down the price of electric vehicles, the price of electric devices to allow us to go mainstream. And so from a technology standpoint, some have called this the holy grail in electric motors. In many cases, we can even eliminate what's called the gearbox, which is weight, complexity, and cost. Again, all part of our strategy to bring smarter energy utilization to the world.
Wow, that's a pretty incredible thing right there. And talking about that, how many different things are going to be utilizing these electric motors, and how many different vehicles, how many different solutions that could be out there utilizing this. Let's talk about that just to give everybody a little bit more context too, of just where this can go and what this invention of yours could be applied to.
Well, take a look at electric motors in general. 50% of the world's electricity passes through some type of electric motor. So again, it's everything from small bird scooters all the way up to electric vehicles, but people don't realize there are millions of electric vehicles in industrial applications. There are millions of electric vehicles in air conditioners. The air conditioning space, believe it or not, is one that we're very passionate about. There's 2.8 billion people that live in the hottest part of the world. The last time I checked, I don't think the world's getting any cooler. And so if you can decrease the cost of those very high efficiency air conditioners, you can have a massive impact on the electrical utilization of the world. So from our standpoint, the applications are very far and wide. Everything from last mile mobility, think FedEx trucks down to scooters, all the way to air conditioners. We really think that this has the opportunity to be one of those revolutionary technologies of this next wave of electrification.
And I think that's a great example, talking about refrigerators and things like that a lot of people just may not put into context when we're talking about electric motors and different ways that we can make that more efficient. I got to ask, looking forward, even past that, about robotics. Is this something that you feel could be one of those things that could power some of the future robotics that we see a lot of companies working on?
Absolutely. Robots like Torque and robots like Range. So if it's a mobility robot, you might see like in an Amazon logistics factory where it's driving around, taking parts around the factory. If those can go longer, if they can carry more weight, i.e. have more torque capabilities, that can improve the efficiency of their systems. There's also a concept in robotics called pick and place. So you think about a robotic arm that moves around. Well, they're actually limited today because of the inertia of those robots, and they have to use really expensive gearing. They have to operate at very high speeds. If we can change the way those operate and increase the ability of their weight, increase the speed, and increase the energy utilization of those robots, we can revolutionize manufacturing as well across the world.
That's incredible. Well, talking about it right now, and where you're at, let's talk about the company itself, where these motors are at and how they're being utilized. But what do you see here? What can we expect in the next, coming year, 2 years?
Look, I really am trying to build the next Siemens, the next GE, the next big major motor manufacturer here in the United States. This motor is another unique thing about this motor is it's the first modular motor ever built. What I mean by that, a lot of motors can be modular. You can stick them together, which ours can do. You can like stack them like pancakes, if you will, to get more power output. But this is the very first motor in the world that, at least that I'm aware of, that is completely modular in its construction. What that's done for us is allowed us to build up a manufacturing base all across the world. We've actually part numbered this motor. So I think of our motors, our smart motor systems, as really like an automobile manufacturer. We have a supply chain, we have logistics, and we have manufacturers all across the world that build our components. And if you could put Legos together, you could put our motor together. We have assembly houses that we're standing up both across the country, even some we're looking to stand up here in the United States to actually bring this forward. I mean, the market opportunity is almost staggering. I mean, and if you have the best motor, you win. And I tell people all the time, the physics are the physics. This motor has won the physics game. And now our process and our job is to bring to commercialization and large-scale manufacturing.
Well, it sounds like, that customizability that you have with that so that you can customize these things and put them into about anything is pretty incredible. So that sounds like, your market would be pretty much anybody at that point when it comes to the industry. I do have to ask just one final thing here. Since you are, one of the essentially the inventors of this, you're the founder of the company. What's the most exciting thing you've utilized one of your motors for in your personal life?
Well, I tell you what my dream is, and that's probably one of my most exciting. Look, I'm a big space buff. I love what Elon's doing with SpaceX. I love that we're going back to the moon. I love that we're going to Mars. I mean, my dream would ultimately be for one of our motors that we call the HET powered Mars rovers one day on another planet. I don't know that as a company you get any more exciting than that.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah, I got to agree. That would be pretty incredible. Well, Brad, thank you very much for joining us here to talk about this. Congratulations on the success. Where can I send people to learn more about your company, which could be the future GE?
Yeah, follow us on Twitter at Linear Labs Inc. We're also online at the same email address, the same web address, linearlabsinc.com. Come check us out. Today we're building motors for all different kinds of use cases. Mobility is going to be a big one, but increasingly you're going to see us expand into things like air conditioning, robots, and all the other applications. So HET powered is a word I hope one day becomes synonymous with motors.
Congratulations, man, and best of luck on this journey that you're on. It's really exciting, and thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
All right, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, so exciting, right? Talking about that, we talk about, as he said, electrification. What a big term that is, and that's certainly an accurate term going forward. And seeing all these different applications of something like that, it's really pretty incredible to see how that's all changing. And that's why we appreciate having people like Brad on the show. And thank you to everybody too who's tuning in to Digital Trends Live. I appreciate you. We've got more coming up though. We have Mr. John Velasco who's going to join us to bring us up to date on what's going on with smart homes. So that's happening next. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. We'd like to keep you up to date on everything going on in technology, so let's do that right now. So I'm here in our Portland, Oregon studio, but of course we have our New York studio. We're standing by. We have Mr. John Velasco who's going to keep us up to date on what's going on in the world of smart homes. I know John has a busy day right now, but he's taking the time here to keep us up to date. So John, let's just jump right into it. What do you want to talk about first?
So last week I talked to you, Greg, about why hackers are hacking security cameras. All the talk with Ring, the Ring news. We know, as one of the people I interviewed, former hacker, now security expert, he said that they're doing it for fun. So they got me really thinking about security cameras and privacy, for consumers, for people at home. And I want to talk about why every home security camera should have a privacy shutter. Now, when I say a shutter, it's something that goes over the camera, of course, so it prevents someone from the other end of watching what the video there, obviously. But with most cameras, if you look in the market right now, there aren't a whole lot that have privacy shutters. The vast majority, even the big names, including Ring, there isn't a shutter of some kind or privacy shutter of some kind, whether it be an electric one or a mechanical. So it falls down to those two categories with shutters in cameras. And there's an interesting reason, I got a few reasons from different companies why most cameras don't have security shutters in the first place. And number one, Greg, is the cost. It's something that you have to think about, that companies think about when developing these products. They have the smart security features, they have some advanced AI features, but something so simple as a shutter of some kind, whether it's just a cover for the camera itself, the lens, or an electronic one that disables both the video feed and also the microphone, there is some investment with that. So I got down to the bottom of it and asked, a company, in this case, SimpliSafe, which is a DIY, do-it-yourself security company. They've been in the business for a while, and they've been making a lot of interesting news with their products. And specifically, I spoke to their senior engineering manager, who's Daryl Holligan, and he mentions to me the cost of the privacy shutter components in its camera. So Greg, they have a camera right now. It's called the SimpliSafe SimpliCam. And compared to some of the other cameras on the market, it's not as sophisticated. It's pretty much bare bones. It's there to access in real time, watch video feeds. There's two-way communication. And in the event that there's something going on home, you could find out about it, of course, using the camera. But the interesting thing that they have in place with the SimpliCam is the mechanical shutter. And it's unique because, again, like I said, there aren't too many security cameras on the market that have a privacy shutter. This is one of the more well-known established brands that have it. And the sobering reality is that the cost for the components for the privacy shutter here, in this case, is $1. Now, that doesn't take into account research and development, the R&D process. I imagine there's a lot of money put into that, but just the components themselves for a security shutter costs $1 in the SimpliCam. And that is, for some companies, other companies out there that make security cameras, that can be concerned. So cost being number one. Number two is an interesting reason, because I spoke with another company, I'm not going to say who it is right here, but they mentioned to me they're releasing a few cameras, and I noticed that none of them had any sort of privacy shutter. And they told me the reason why they opted not to go for a shutter is the fact that there's the risk of potential failure. In a way, that's kind of, I get that, because there are moving parts. With anything, any moving part, you think of a smartphone like the OnePlus 7, one of the OnePlus phones that has the camera that comes up from the top so that the display is completely, just an all-screen display. There's that moving part. And yes, moving parts in a camera, potential failure, that's like anything. But they said that this is the reason why they opted not to go with it. But when you think about warranties and the type of research and development that goes into these privacy shutters, how they move, how they work, how they operate, they ensure that it's going to work properly, not for just the short term, but for the long term. So that's that. And like I said, there are two types of shutters. There are the passive ones, which are basically controlled via an electronic component. So think of like all the Amazon Echo shows that you have in the market. You have just basically a switch, a physical switch that you could just cover the camera, which is great as far as privacy is concerned. And that also will actually mute the microphone so they don't hear you. But to me, it still seems like there's always that possibility of it being compromised. Hackers, they could get sophisticated. They could possibly, disable that feature, because when you think about those electronic shutters, they're controlled through an app. You could disable it,
right.
But sometimes it's still possible that a hacker could gain access that disable the shutter and still watch it in real time. But the SimplyCam's implementation is a little bit different, because I think they have a pretty good implementation for privacy. So with the mechanical shutter in their camera, it actually emits an audible tone. So when I'm at home and someone accesses the camera, because when I'm home it's closed, the shutter's closed, the camera itself you can't access, and there's no video feed obviously. But the moment someone accesses the camera, let's say a spouse or a friend, through the app or on the website, you hear a distinctive tone. It's as if someone's like snapping a photo, and you hear that, and that instantly tells you, hey, the camera is active, someone is viewing it in real time. So to me, that's a great implementation, because you get that audible tone, you're very aware and alert that someone's watching, and it's good for privacy.
Anything that, and I like the idea of having one on there too. It's not something I'd actually thought about until you're bringing this up, that none of them have it. Is there any opportunity for like aftermarket add-ons? Like here on my laptop, I've got one of those little, switch shutter things that I can block my camera at any time that I want, which is always blocked, by the way. Any opportunity for something like that?
Yeah, obviously that's the quick method. Something that you have to do yourself.
Right.
There isn't necessarily a product that will adapt to any type of security camera. Obviously, you could always point the camera away somewhere else, or B, just turn it off.
Yeah.
But then again, that defeats the purpose of having security camera, right?
Right. Yeah, it definitely does. Well, it's definitely. Oh, go ahead, John, if you want to wrap up with what you're talking about.
Yes. The privacy shutter with the SimplyCam is just, to me, a great implementation. $1 cost. I think more companies should invest into privacy shutters, because it's great for consumers, it's great for privacy, and it just keeps us safe. So when someone's watching and when someone isn't.
I would be willing to pay the extra couple of bucks if it comes down to that to help do that. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's all I can think about with my home security system. Well, John, thank you so much for joining us here. Really, really appreciate it, for keeping us up to date. And as always, everybody can go to digitaltrends.com and stay up to date with everything that John is writing when it comes to smart homes. John, thank you so much.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, John Velasco right there, always full of just amazing information when it comes to that, and certainly something to think about. Why are there no shutters? So go there and read about that at digitaltrends.com. And I know we've had a lot that we have covered here today, and I want to thank everyone for joining us here, because we do like to keep you up to date on technology. And certainly today has been one of those days to where we have covered all kinds of different things, going back to the beginning with some of our interviews to some of the things that we're covering now. And thank you to everybody who's joining us. Tomorrow on the show, well, we've got stuff that we're going to talk about. I'll tell you that much. So coming up tomorrow, there are going to be, as usual, we've got more interviews for you. We've got Bob Lord, who's IBM's Senior Vice President of Cognitive Applications. So IBM is introducing a call for the Code Global Challenge, inviting developers to help save lives by building applications for good, fueled by data and open source technology. So that's going to be a great discussion. Excited to hear more about that initiative. We'll also have Luke Larson back here on the show to talk about Apple's move to build their own ARM-based processors. They've been using Intel processors since 2005. And their acceleration of their own processors marks a big shift in design. So there's also rumors that AMD's latest Ryzen chips could be in the mix. You'll have to stay tuned tomorrow to find out about that mystery. All right, tune in at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, wherever you consume content. Make sure to subscribe or follow Digital Trends to get notified when we go live. Specifically, if you're a YouTube user, make sure to subscribe to our new channel, Digital Trends Live. So you've got Digital Trends, you already subscribed to that. That's great. Now subscribe to Digital Trends Live. So subscribe to both of those, and that way you can get all of the content that we put out. And for Digital Trends, I'm Greg Nibbler. I'll see you all right back here tomorrow.
On a Tuesday?
I